better way.
Right.
And people have always said to me, oh, what you're asking for is almost impossible in a country like Nigeria. I said, no, it's a product of evolution and clear thinking. I'm looking forward to a time in this country where we will not have INEC conducting election everywhere in the country. We unbundle INEC, and this conduct should take place at the state levels. And then we can just send in the results. Because, Mike, you know, when elections are being conducted in the US, you don't have an INEC that announce the result to the whole world. Where you have state boards of elections who announce their results from different states, and that's why you see the networks called it, who has won the election as president, who has won the senatorial election, who has won for the House of Reps.
But how long do you think that is going to take Nigeria to achieve that?
Well, I think, look, we can create whatever we want. We are not in the situation that we are because of absence of talents. It's simply because we don't want to do the right thing for our country. You know, it's about people digging in for selfish, personal interest.
Yeah, but when we have, we've always talked about the fact that the challenge of Nigeria and Nigerians is the kind of leaders that we have had. When you talk about leaders, when you talk about skills, when you talk about professionalism, Nigerians stand as some of the best professionals anywhere in the world. So what is that difference between deploying those kind of people to come and imbibe the kind of technology he's talking about? Ideally.
You must appreciate that leaders are not people that you get from the shelf. You just start picking them. No, you have to grow leaders. You have to groom leaders. If you don't groom them, you will have a perfect system. So you must
we have some of our
that.
leaders who have been in politics for decades.
You have a lot of accident of history coming into leadership. If you look at pre-independence, post-independence, the set of leaders that came were not leaders that just came from obscurity. These are people that have a very perfect trajectory. You can pin them to a purpose, and you can pin them to a mentor. They didn't just grow out from nowhere. They were actually modeled along a certain ideology, and they kept to those ideologies, regardless of materialism. They had the purpose to achieve. But right now, you don't have such set of people. How many times do we have leaders that go into a convergence to think and bring out policies to achieve a certain goal? We don't readily have such leaders anymore. We should be very thankful, and I keep saying it to the Southwest and other part of the country. And there are some of them, notable among them, is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Readily, they go on retreats, either in the country or outside the country, to discuss about germane issues of development. But again, we must try as much as possible to replicate them, particularly in our microcosm, in the various local governments, various states, where leaders, we go on retreat to think about sundry matters, bring out solutions, workable solutions, and of course, go into the academia. I cry for this country when I see university management trying to trample down student unionism. I cry for this country. Because if you don't allow them to experiment these things, we're in trouble. I was so amazed and happy when I saw a school called Playhouse in Ikeja. They organize little kids in the kindergarten and allow them to demonstrate the function of INEC, and also allow them to demonstrate civic obligation of Nigerian people. And they were seated there, you know, teaching them on how to vote, how to administrate the workings of these systems, and all of these things. So we must try to start grooming our population.
All right. If we look at our political development since independence until now, the 2019 election is the 10th general election we've had in this country from 1964 until now and all of that. If you talk about the founding fathers that he mentioned, the Awolowos, the Ahmadu Bellos, and the Azikiwes, Tafawa Balewa, and the others, would you say they have even laid the right foundation? Because if you're talking about leaders later on who learn from this and all of that, you take from these people what they have done, what they stood for, and all of that. Do you think the founding fathers laid that right foundation for the politicians of today?
Well, I think there was a different mindset. And the mindset was, for the founding fathers, they just got us an independence, and then they were working very, very hard to see how they would integrate the country. Yeah, they had setbacks. But in terms of attitudes to consumption, with the exception of very few of them, they did better than the current leaders that we have, majority of the current people. And I say this, you know, with all sense of responsibility. The missing link in this country is the fact that we all sit there most times and just blame the leaders. And I've said this over time. Leaders don't just drop from the moon. They live in the society, they know the values of the society, they know what the society appreciates. And you see that happen in this election, you know, where some, you know, in the course of campaigning told us that they were even prepared to bring back certain value because it gave them advantage over others. Look, there was a former premier in this country who established a GRA in a state. It's on record that he never got a single plot allocated to himself. But years down the line, a certain governor emerged from the same state, and by the time he finished, the story was that he owned more than half of that GRA. You see, so you can see the attitude. So there was a bit of attempt by the founding fathers of this country to try and do some level of integration and push the country forward.
Where did we really get it wrong? Where there's a sharp difference between what the founding fathers stood for and what the politician of today represent or replicates?
I think we got it wrong when the value chain shifted.
From?
You know, shifted from what we used to hold as very dear to our hearts, you know, like merit, you know, good behavior, transparency. When you are honest in those days, there's an award they give.
So was it the presence of oil that shifted it, or it was the military incursion that shifted it, or
a lot of factors? But don't forget, oil is a cost. You know, the cost of oil all over the world. you say that when people make cheap money from rents and all that, it tends to take away, to erode values, you know, because...
Ayodele, let me come to you on this. When it comes to good governance, it still boils down to the issue of leadership. You have been in government. What is that? Is there a temptation when one gets to office? You have been a chief executive before. So at that level where you look at the votes of your government, and then you see what you're supposed to do, and you see all the loyalty, you see all the allegiances, you see all the paraphernalia of government, is there a temptation around there? Make us understand what that feeling is.
Temptation have always been there from the starting of time, and temptation will always be there. You see, you must understand the backgrounds of everybody. I came from a background of civil society. I came from a background where military, was in charge, and I came from a background where our duty was to take away military government through, advocacy and resistance, and all of that. I came from a background where I was tutored by people like Chief Gani Fawemi, Dr. Becker and Somkuti, partly by Chief Anthony Nauro, CFR, Professor Wole Soyinka. And as I grew on, I met Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, Senator Tokunbo Afikuyomi. So you could see how I came on board. And where we were always talking about a Nigeria of our dreams. We weren't talking about ourselves. We're talking about a system where things will work, where it is your brilliance, it is your ability that will determine where you get to. So that was where I was coming from. And when I had the opportunity of governing my space in Amuwodo of a local government, I came with the mindset that education must be free, health must be free, infrastructure must be provided. You must grow the economy.
Yeah, but at any point were you tempted
like I told you, temptation has always been there.
So
of
how
course,
did you resist?
The pudding were there. The resistance was that one, you media people, if I am tempted to take the pudding, touch the cheese, you will come with a question. But you were the one saying that you are working for a perfect system. I came from a family background that when you bring a pencil or you bring a toy to your home and it's not given to you by your parents, they will ask you, where did you get it from? You'll be rebuilt. So you must also understand that the family background is also there, cultural background is there, and it's about education. You can't develop a system that is perfect if you don't have this right set of education. The education is not only about literary education, it's about good culture that must be told to people. I came from a background where my aunt will be there to tell you about the story of the tortoise, where the tortoise stole something and the villagers come to beat the tortoise under the moonlight.
And
so we must target them from young and keep talking to them, and the rest set of value will be inculcated.
Well, when it comes to this value that we have all talked about, in the 70s and maybe early 80s, you could see that everywhere. You could even see it in the air. But at one point, all that is missing. But how far are we from bringing back that kind of value?
Well, I think we're not too far. It's about setting the right tone. You know, like he said, it first of all must start from the family, because that's the smallest unit and the most effective unit. To set the right tone, send the right message to tell your kids, this is right, this is wrong. But unfortunately, we live in a society where those things that we used to despise are the things that we love now. So stealing is no longer stealing, it's some smartness. You know, the kid is smart. You know, is bright.
All right. We'll come back to all of this, so we can get to look at where we're getting it wrong, and then we can put it right. Now, that's the program for now. Nigeria Votes will resume after the news, and follow all our details of what is going on in parts of the country. My colleague Kemi Folade Emo will take it up from here. Still with TVC News, the Nigeria news leader.